In recent decades, China's space program has made important progress. China has conducted robotic missions to the moon, and its space station will become operational at a time when the International Space Station is nearing the end of its service life. China's commercial space industry has seen explosive growth in recent years, with over 100 companies engaged in building and launching rockets and satellites. And China's military continues to build an array of counter space capabilities that include direct ascent kinetic kill vehicles, electronic warfare, cyber, and directed energy weapons. The rise of China's space program presents growing military, economic, and political challenges to the United States. Reflecting this concern, in March 2019, Vice President Mike Pence stated that the U.S. and China are in a new space race that has even higher stakes than the space race between the United States and the Soviet Union during the Cold War. He warned that China has an ambition to seize the lunar strategic high ground and become the world's preeminent spacefaring nation. China's space program is one component of the Chinese Communist Party's overarching goal of making China rich, strong, and proud. China regards its space program as an important expression of its national power that supports China's political, economic, and military interests. Although Chinese analysts describe the United States as the world's leading space power, they see their own space program as catching up with and likely surpassing the U.S. by mid-century. Chinese perceptions of the U.S.-China space relationship are a reflection of how China views its overall relationship with the United States. The two countries are in a long-term competition in which China is attempting to become a global power, and part of this effort is being played out in space. China's primary motivation for its space program is national security. However, as China's space program advances, its commercial and scientific activities will become more prominent and will extend the competition between the two countries to encompass economics and diplomacy, challenging U.S. leadership in space. China's space proponents depict space as an essential component of modern war that also has the potential to meet their country's economic and natural resource needs. They envision a space program that by mid-century exploits the area between the Earth and the Moon through advanced space-based remote sensing, satellite navigation, and communications capabilities, expands human presence in space through the operation of a space station and human exploration of the Moon, and extracts natural resources through asteroid and moon mining and space-based solar power. However, it is unknown to what extent China's top leadership has accepted this expansive vision of space. Meeting these objectives would require China to become the world's leader across a broad range of space technologies, as it also attempts to solve many complicated technical challenges unprecedented in the history of spaceflight. Regardless of the extent of China's future space ambitions, China's space program is focused on protecting China's national security interests. China's top national security issues are terrestrial, and space is characterized as an essential component of modern warfare. Space assets provide critical capabilities for situational awareness and command and control, which Chinese strategists view as necessary to fight high-tech modern wars. China's counterspace components threaten the ability of adversaries to conduct space operations and may be used by China to try to deter certain adversary actions during times of tension or conflict. China's space policy is one element of China's foreign policy goal of reshaping the international system to better serve Chinese national interests. Much like China's stated foreign policy aim of building a community of shared future for mankind, China's space policy is intended to build a shared future vision for humanity in space. China's space activities are intended to build its reputation as a reliable and attractive space partner to help it achieve its goal of establishing a multipolar world in which there is no longer a single superpower shaping the international system. China states that, unlike the United States, it takes an open and inclusive approach to international space cooperation. It conducts numerous cooperative activities with other countries to improve its international position and bolster its influence among less developed countries. Chinese writings, on the other hand, depict the United States as undermining outer space as a peaceful frontier that can benefit all humanity. They cite U.S. military doctrine, technology development efforts, space war games, and the establishment of a U.S. military space force to portray the United States as a malevolent force bent on dominating space and restricting China's access to space. At the same time, Chinese analysts minimize the military role of their own country's space program. Chinese writings on commercial space state that China seeks to emulate the success of U.S. commercial space companies in achieving technological innovation while reducing costs. Unlike the U.S., where privately owned companies are the drivers of growth, China's commercial space sector appears to be a mix of private companies, state-owned enterprises, and public-private partnerships. China's private commercial sector faces many challenges, including a lack of a supportive policy environment and the central government's favoritism toward the state-owned sector. Although China's space program is rapidly advancing, the United States remains the leading space power and will retain that position for decades. Nevertheless, China's explicit use of space as an instrument of national power poses military, economic, and diplomatic challenges for the United States, much as China's increasing capabilities and expanding global presence challenge the United States in other domains. Coordinated actions that emphasize U.S.-led approaches to space and their role in helping other states achieve their space objectives will be the best guarantee of maintaining U.S. influence in space affairs. In terms of military applications, China's space program plays an important role in the People's Liberation Army's anti-access and area denial efforts. China's constellation of military satellites enables long-range precision strikes that could be used to target U.S. military bases and ships. China's counter-space architecture threatens U.S. space systems from the ground to geosynchronous orbit. In the economic realm, China's growing commercial space sector could pose challenges to the U.S. space sector. As with other industrial sectors, such as steel and solar panels, China's commercial space sector may be overcrowded, forcing the Chinese government to resort to protectionist practices to support the sector through subsidies and flood the market with cheap Chinese products and services. China's ambitions to extract natural resources from space could have profound consequences for the world if they are approved and successful. By most accounts, however, asteroid mining, moon mining, and space-based solar power are technologically complex and economically unfeasible. Finally, in foreign affairs, China uses its international space cooperative activities to demonstrate that it is an enlightened, benevolent great power, able and willing to fulfill other countries' security and economic needs through the application of space-based capabilities. These efforts may be more effective in promoting Chinese influence in the developing world. China is also using its influence to promote its own agenda in space related to space arms control, space sustainability, the commercial uses of space, and natural resource extraction. It could also be used to hinder U.S. or Western approaches to space governance, such as its opposition to the European Union's proposed International Code of Conduct for Outer Space Activities. For more information on China's space program and what it means for the U.S., see CNA's published report, China's Space Narrative, examining the portrayal of the U.S.-China space relationship in Chinese sources and its implications for the United States.